Lisa and Charlie, tell me a little bit about Trash, your game that's set in a sci-fi future where there's no people left, but there's still a lot of life in a slightly different way.
So we're making a game called Trash, which is a multiplayer open world adventure game set in a post-human world. So as you said, sadly, all the humans are gone, but there is life left on the planet in the shape of morphites, which are generated from a substance called resin, which is kind of like the new dominant life force on Earth. So you can dive into this world, you can explore together with friends. We've got challenge zones with all kinds of puzzles and mazes for you to explore, and you can do all of this in a beautiful, colourful, low poly world that's like no other to get lost into.
What sort of things will people be doing in this world? Like, what is the gameplay like for people who might want to look for a touchstone if they're trying to think of putting Trash in the right frame of mind?
So basically, you start off in a open world, and it's multiplayer. So you'll join in the open world. You'll be finding resources, creating different attachments, which give you different abilities, finding different cute little creatures. The world, we put a lot of effort into the overworld, so it's looking fantastic. If I don't say so myself, and and sort of the main gameplay loop is finding these challenge zones, so which are like old human buildings, and in these challenge zones is where the procedural generation occurs. So you find these challenge zones, you load in, and you get faced with at the moment for our demo about to come out, we've got 3 different challenge elements, so 3 different puzzle types that are procedurally generated. But for the main game, we'll have more, so there'll be more variation. But yeah, you like get in, and depending on your attachments, they can help you or hinder you in these little challenge zones, and you sort of work together to figure out the puzzles. And then at the end of those, you sort of heal that area, so the trash life can grow back, big, and get rid of all the human stuff that's stopping it from growing. And then you get more resources, and then you can craft more attachments, and then it's just so on and so forth.
The attachments, is it a sort of a structured adaptions and things as you go along, or is it a bit like Katamari where you can just kind of like scoop up a whole bunch of stuff and just like jam it all together? How does that all work?
Yeah, so I mean, everything is made of like recognizable bits of trash, so it's really satisfying. The attachments are sort of set, so you have different arm attachments. So you've got different arm, different legs, and different torso attachments that you find the resource. Just say like that one torso is a bubble torso, which gives you a protective shield against the environment, and you need to find like a soccer ball and spring and I think one other thing, a rad rod, and then you can use those to craft this soccer ball, which sits on your torso and then expands out to protect you. So they are structured. Just because of the demo, we had to sort of limit it a little bit. But the idea is that in the full game will add like a lot more creativity to the attachments as well as the character, because like this idea of using trash is just so endless. You can use it in such creative ways, so you can have the funniest little heads and legs and things.
One of the things that really captured me when we first started looking at this game was just it's really beautifully striking and really high contrast, very interesting colors and everything to put it all together. Tell me a little bit about the development of that visual style that you've put together.
Yeah, so we started work on Trash sort of after our previous game, so the last year, and we started with a series of prototypes. And I have the history as a graphic designer, so I have obsessed with color and contrast. So even in the very early prototypes that we did, I found myself creating really striking colors, and really saturated colors, which I just naturally gravitate towards because I think they make things look better than they are, even if they're not that good. So yeah, so I think it also works. The sort of vibrance really works with the trash world, and there's a lot of purple because that's the resin. So everything's sort of based in this resin. So there's a lot of purple throughout, and then we had to find sort of real life colors that sort of complemented that. So that's why the rocks are sort of like this grey blue, and the ground is sort of like what the ground would be. But yeah, I think like we from the very start we really wanted something that was visually appealing. That's really important for an indie game, as well, to sort of catch the eye. So if our gameplay is terrible, don't worry, it won't be. People will be like, well, at least it's pretty.
Well, I can't say after like spending a lot of time like looking at gameplay videos to put together for our social media, when you look away from the screen, all of a sudden the real world looks so flat and grey. So it's one of the things I love.
Lisa, tell me a little bit about some of the reactions that you've had from people who've seen the game or who've had a chance to have a little bit of a play of it so far.
Well, so we actually regularly post little segments of the game on our Twitter, which you can actually follow at 15 Minutes of Game out on the wild World Wide Web. And thank you. And usually people really fall in love with the visual style because that's sort of the striking note that people kind of notice first about the game. But we also really wanted to put a strong message in there about sustainability, about recycling the resources that you find. And I really find that once people learn more about the game through our social media channels and our messaging, that sort of draws them in as well, which is really lovely to know that there's an audience for that out there and that people care about stuff like sustainability and climate change. So it's been really great.
Thinking of an idea of a post-human planet, some people might think, oh, that's quite doom and gloomy, but is this a hopeful game?
I would say so, yeah. Especially because it's about the rebirth of the planet and life kind of getting a foothold in a planet that otherwise, was seen as doomed by humanity, but that's not necessarily the case. And I think Charlie would agree. Would you, Charlie?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of humor in the world design as well. There's like hanging portaloos. There's like we've got this the narrative is that you're actually on this sort of island that was an energy company called E Corp, and they're like sort of really like a caricature of everything evil in corporations. So it's sort of like it has the seriousness, but it's definitely a lot to laugh at, and the narrative is very stylized as well. So it's actually a good question because when we did an earlier demo, we had all these beautiful visuals and we had a more serious narrative, and it just didn't really fit. And that was a big bit of feedback we got. They were like, "Well, these are at odds," and so we've really made sure to bring out the humor, which is where we naturally like to sit anyway, in it, just to go along with it. And like Lisa said, it's beautiful, but there's a lot of hope, and it's all about like this next race, if you will, making the correct decisions as opposed to what humans are doing.
As opposed to what humans are doing right now. Hopefully people are inspired by it. But how far along in the process are you of making this game? When will people have a chance to, one, play the demo, but also then play the full game?
The game will be the demo will be out at the end of this month. So, it's super exciting. You can get your hands on it really soon, the demo at least. It'll be available for free on Steam. You can check us out on Steam. And then for the main game, it might be sort of like a year and a half after that point, depending on how we go with sort of publisher negotiations and the next round of funding that we sort of need. But yeah, the demo is out towards the end of this month. It'll be multiplayer, so you can play it with your frenzies. It'll work. It'll work. No, it'll work. It'll work. The lead developer will kill me for saying that.
If you're keen to sort of stay in the loop now with when we will release it and some of our development diaries and stuff, I'd highly recommend to wishlist us because that way you're kept in the loop automatically, which is great.
Charlie and Lisa, it's been a real pleasure to talk to you. We cannot wait to play Trash a little bit later this month and hopefully get you back on the podcast to actually talk about the whole process of making the game down the track. Thanks for coming on to the Sifter Showcase and enjoy the rest of your Melbourne International Games Week.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much.